Actually, let's go ahead and just look at this 5 seconds. This comes after the question in which Tony East mentioned off the ball again.
Yeah, your guys' 2 favorite questions: what I wear to practice and me playing off-ball basketball.
Yeah, you guys' 2 favorite questions. What I wear to practice and replaying off-ball. That's not just sass. That's a professional athlete who's reached her limit with repetitive questioning. And the way she delivered it, with that specific tone, tells you this has been building for weeks. But here's what makes this moment fascinating. The reporter's response reveals he knew exactly what he was walking into.
Laughing my A off, and then someone said LOL, and then someone else said, she got you for real, but nice pivot attempt. Now, what did CC Report mean when writing she got you for real, but nice pivot attempt? Well, if you watch that clip, which I'm not going to show again, from yesterday, when Caitlin cut him off and said, basically, y'all are so obsessed with the same stuff.
Tony East didn't get defensive. He didn't backtrack. Instead, he went straight to social media and wrote, "Fried my behind. Wanted to follow up after Steph's insightful stuff yesterday, though." That's a reporter who understands the game. He got his Caitlin Clark moment, took the heat publicly, and turned it into content. But there's a deeper story here about the relationship between WNBA players and the media covering them. And it's getting more complicated by the week.
Amazingly, wasn't a pivot and was what I was going for anyway. But I had to be more emphatic after the start. Ha ha. And CC Report said, I hear you, but let me have my joke. And Tony E said, today is the day to make them, meaning jokes, at my expense, with a big old crying laughter emoji.
I say, well, I asked for it.
So I thought this was really fun because he's just like, okay, I get this incredible Caitlin Clark moment, but everybody's talking about how she was annoyed with moi.
Look at how CC Reports on X responded. She got you for real, but nice pivot attempt. Because after Caitlin cut him off, Tony East tried to clarify that he wasn't asking about off-ball play just to ask about it again. He claimed he wanted to know if she'd gotten better at it, following up on Stephanie White's comments from the previous day. The problem is, Caitlin had already heard this question in 17 different variations. And when you're the biggest draw in women's basketball history, averaging over 19 points and 9 assists per game while transforming franchise economics overnight, being asked repeatedly about basic basketball concepts starts to feel disrespectful.
Tony East, great sport, great acknowledgement that, yeah, she fried yo tail because she was thinking enough is enough because y'all are so concerned about what I'm wearing, or you're so concerned about me playing off the ball, and it's starting to get really off the wall. And so when I saw that, I thought this is just a really, really cool moment that, number one, people are acknowledging that Caitlin Clark.
Tony East handled this exchange like a professional. He acknowledged the moment, owned it publicly, and even explained his actual intention. He wrote, "Amazingly wasn't a pivot and was what I was going for anyway, but I had to be more emphatic after the start." Then when someone tried to give him credit for the recovery, he responded with crying laughing emojis and said, "Today is the day to make them meaning jokes at my expense." That's how you maintain credibility while accepting you became the story instead of covering it. But this incident exposes a much larger tension in WNBA media coverage right now.
She done had it with all of that and does it so good-naturedly. And likewise, Tony says, I'll accept it. Like, she fried me and I'll just take it for what it is and I'll keep it moving. That's my Caitlin Clark moment. And that he goes on to say, as you saw there, that he really wasn't pivoting just because she fried his behind, but he was really going for something else. He wanted her to elaborate on what he called the insightful comments by
Stephanie White had already addressed the off-ball question the day before Tony East's exchange with Caitlin. She explained it wasn't revolutionary, just basic basketball strategy. White broke down why having your best playmaker move without the ball creates advantages, why it keeps defenses honest, and why every competent coaching staff uses this approach. She gave them the complete answer. Detailed, insightful, exactly what reporters should want. And yet, The next day, there's Tony East asking Caitlin about it again. This is where the frustration comes from. It's not about one reporter or one question. It's about the pattern.
Before, because as you recall, Stephanie White had already said this is not some revolutionary idea. This is just basic basketball. And she went on to explain he found that insightful and he wanted to get more out of Caitlin about that. But that day, she wanted to let them know, look, we done gone down that road. So she fried him. And he had a sense of humor about it. And I think it's funny. I'll catch you next time, God willing.
The other question Caitlin referenced, what she wears to practice, perfectly illustrates the problem. Male athletes don't get asked about their practice outfits. They don't get the same question rephrased 15 different ways after their coach already answered it comprehensively. And they definitely don't have to maintain composure while being treated like their sport is some curiosity project, instead of professional athletics. Caitlin Clark broke the WNBA single-season assist record. She's rewriting offensive efficiency metrics, and she's being asked about her wardrobe choices and whether she's figured out how to play without the ball yet. What makes Tony East's response particularly interesting is that he didn't claim ignorance or blame Caitlin for being sensitive. He accepted the moment for what it was, a player setting a boundary and him being on the receiving end of it publicly. That's actually rare in sports media. Usually when reporters get checked by athletes, there's defensiveness, explanations about how hard their job is, or subtle suggestions that the athlete was unprofessional. Tony East just said she fried me and kept it moving, and that might be the healthiest possible outcome for this kind of exchange. Because here's the reality. Caitlin Clark has transformed WNBA economics in ways we haven't seen since the league's founding in 1997. The Indiana Fever went from playing in front of sparse crowds to selling out arenas. Television ratings for Fever games shattered previous records. Her jersey became the fastest-selling piece of WNBA merchandise in history. Attendance across the league increased by double digits in 2024, largely because fans wanted to see her play. And with all of that context, with all of that pressure and attention and scrutiny, she's still showing up to press conferences and answering questions professionally, until the questions stop being professional. The "what do you wear to practice" question isn't journalism, it's filler. It's treating a generational talent like she's a lifestyle influencer instead of an elite point guard. And the repeated off-ball questions, even after her head coach provided comprehensive analysis, suggest that some media members either aren't listening to the answers or don't respect them enough to move on to substantive topics. Caitlin's response, "Yeah, you guys' two favorite questions," was her drawing a line. She did it with humor. She did it without attacking Tony East personally. But she made it clear that she notices the pattern, and she's tired of it. That's not being difficult, that's being human. What happens next matters more than this single exchange. Does the media covering the Fever adjust their approach? Do they recognize that Caitlin Clark has earned the right to be asked about basketball strategy, offensive schemes, playoff preparation, and her development as a professional athlete? Or do we see more questions about practice outfits and basic concepts that have already been explained? Tony East's gracious response suggests he gets it. He understood that Caitlin wasn't attacking him personally. She was addressing a broader pattern, and he happened to be the one asking when she decided to say something about it. His willingness to acknowledge that publicly, to accept the moment without defensiveness, shows maturity that not every sports reporter demonstrates. But one reporter adjusting his approach doesn't solve the systemic issue. The WNBA has spent decades fighting for legitimacy, for coverage that treats women's basketball as serious professional sport rather than a curiosity or a side project. When the league's biggest star, the player who's done more for WNBA visibility than anyone since Diana Taurasi, gets asked repeatedly about her clothing choices and basic basketball concepts, it reveals that some media members still haven't made that mental shift. The encouraging part is that Caitlin handled it perfectly. She didn't explode, she didn't refuse to answer, she just calmly pointed out the pattern with enough edge to make her point clear. And Tony East responded with equal professionalism, acknowledging what happened without making excuses. That's how these moments should go. The test is whether anything actually changes, whether the next press conference features questions about the Fever's defensive adjustments, Caitlin's evolution as a floor general, or the team's preparation for playoff-caliber opponents. Whether reporters come prepared with questions that reflect the level of basketball being played, rather than treating these athletes like they need basic concepts explained to them over and over. Because Caitlin Clark has already proven she can handle the pressure, the attention, and the responsibility that comes with being the face of the WNBA's growth. The question is whether the media covering her can match that level of professionalism. Based on Tony East's response, some of them can. Based on the questions that prompted Caitlin's reaction, some of them still have work to do. So here's what I want to know. If you were in Caitlin's position, dealing with the same questions on repeat while trying to focus on winning basketball games, how long would it take before you said something? Because I think she showed remarkable patience, and I think her response was perfectly calibrated to make her point without burning bridges. Tell me if you think she handled it right, or if you would have done it differently. Drop your thoughts in the comments.